Travis Danraj says the CBC only pretends to like diversity but doesn't support diversity of opinion. And we have Pierre Poilievre even chiming in on this. A veteran host just blew the whistle. Question the state-funded broadcaster narrative and you get demoted or shut down. This isn't journalism, it's taxpayer-funded groupthink and liberal propaganda. And an article coming from the National Post, CBC host resigns saying he could not continue at public broadcaster with integrity. Travis's lawyer, Catherine Marshall, said Monday that the CBC didn't want him booking conservative voices on his show. And you know what Mark Carney did earlier this year? He pledged $150 million to boost the underfunded CBC. So they don't want conservative voices on the show, and the liberal government continues to prop them up and give them money. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It is now out in the open. I mean, a large majority of us already knew that this was pretty much happening, but now it is 1000% confirmed. Also got this clip here of David Eby saying he wasn't pleased when he heard that BC Ferries had awarded a multi-billion-dollar shipbuilding contract to a Chinese company, adding that he will try to ensure that the next round of vessels are made in Canada. Well, you didn't really do a good job on the first round.
Obviously, this is an issue that continues to be controversial, and at the heart of it is the fact that it's a Chinese state-run company that's building these BC Ferries. The provincial government obviously supports BC Ferries as well, which has purchased these vessels through the Chinese company. What's your reaction to people who continue to be upset and concerned about the fact that it is a Chinese company building these 40 vessels?
Well, Rob, we're certainly when I heard, I wasn't pleased with the fact that the contract was going to China. I wasn't happy with the fact that no Canadian company bid on this contract. We've made good progress on shipbuilding in this province. As I've been premier, there's 39% more people working in shipbuilding. Specifically in this province, we dedicated $25 million to grow the sector that was matched by private sector investment that resulted in the creation of 500 jobs in shipbuilding in the province. And I believe there's an opportunity for us to work with the federal government to ensure that the next round of ferries is Canadian built. But the challenge that we have is an unequal ferry system where users in Atlantic Canada are heavily subsidized at a rate of 300 to 1 compared to users of the BC ferry system. And I certainly hope that's part of the federal conversation.
It blows my mind that he somehow got back in. And because this BC Ferries issue has been such a mess, the Conservatives have proposed that the Transportation Committee conduct hearings into this situation.
This is an issue that I think the Transport Committee needs to be seized with. Essentially, we have found a continuing story of where we find new insights as to what the government is doing, and it's not good. Originally, when I pressed the Minister of Transport on this in the House of Commons, she actually said that she wrote a letter outlining her concerns that the BC Ferries, which is owned by the good people of British Columbia, was purchasing ships. And I won't go through the whole June 16th, 2025 letter. Remember, this was only about 3 weeks ago. But I'm just read the first paragraph and the last. It is with great consternation and disappointed that I learned of BC Ferries' recent announcement that it has selected China Merchants Industry Weihai shipyards to build 4 new major vessels. And the last paragraph, I am dismayed that BC Ferries would select a Chinese state-owned shipyard to build new ferries in the current geopolitical context, and I ask that you verify and confirm with utmost certainty that no federal funding will be diverted to support the acquisition of these new ferries. And yet, we find out through the media that the hapless new Minister of Housing and Infrastructure knew nothing of a $1 billion loan agreement that had been signed by the Canada Infrastructure Bank, essentially financing with taxpayer dollars the outsourcing of Canadian jobs to the shipyard in China. Imagine my shock, Mr. Chair, that we learned that during a time of unjustified steel and aluminum tariffs, where people are receiving pink slips for their jobs because of these American tariffs, that we find that they find that their own government is actually using their tax dollars to subsidize jobs and economic activity outside the country. And so I think it's completely on us as a committee to demand answers from both the Minister of Transport and Internal Trade and the Minister of Housing and Communities, because they do not appear to be on the same page. And anytime we're talking about scarce public taxpayer dollars, effectively incentivizing other corporations to do the same, Mr. Chair, to seek financing for a project, I don't understand how this is even within the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's mandate. And that's why the CEO of the Infrastructure Bank itself has been called in our motion specifically. Now, obviously, BC Ferries, there's a lot of questions. I've spoken to many reporters in British Columbia who have a number of different questions outlining the procurement and some of the details that come with this. But again, my focus is largely on getting answers so that people can know whether or not their government, remember the government that said elbows up, Canada strong, we can build it together, is in fact actually financing the outsourcing of Canadian jobs. And it doesn't seem that anyone up until the Conservatives, and I also should thank my colleague from the Bloc, for supporting this emergency meeting today so that we can bring this important issue forward.
And there you have it. It sounds like nobody is interested in trying to discuss these issues right now except the Conservatives and the Bloc. David Eby just stuttered around questions and sounded quite a bit like Trudeau. And going back to the corrupt CBC, we have them pushing the message that Canadians essentially just need to accept less and pay more.
Today, they made the point that this is not about, cutting today. They made the point that this is not about, cutting a bunch of jobs. It's about rebalancing things, retirement, and as people leave. And you could move people from Department A to, say, Defense, because that's going to be a big priority. But they also said they wanted to bust the current cycle or change the current cycle of budget building where departments just come in with a wish list and count on the finance department to find the cash. They're trying to put a culture of rigor throughout all the departments in this process.
Yeah, there will be a necessary change in orthodoxy. I'm reminded of what happened with Jean Chrétien, who, when you ask Mark Carney who the leaders are that he respects, Jean Chrétien is one of them, Stephen Harper is another one, because of discipline. And when he talked about Mr. Chrétien, it was fiscal discipline. 30 years ago, Jean Chrétien, more than 30 years ago, was sitting in Stornoway just before he was elected, and they had policy experts invited into Stornoway, and they asked him, what are your 3 priorities once you get into government? He said, keep our independence from the United States, maintain Canadian unity, and keep the IMF from taking over the Canadian economy. Now, we have a United States independence problem.
Yeah.
They are.
We have a unity issue, too.
We have a unity issue as well. We also have Canadians who are doing the kinds of things that the government is about to do now. Canadians, if you look at real estate listings, Canadians are buying fewer homes.
Yeah.
They're borrowing less money. They're not going on vacation the way they used to. They're staying home. They're selling their vacation properties in the United States. Canadians seem to be prepared for sacrifice. How much sacrifice is yet to be tested? We're going to find out.
They're not preparing for anything. It's just the simple fact that they can't afford it anymore. People can't go out all the time anymore because things are just so insanely expensive. People can't afford the most basic of necessities. What makes you think that they're going to be able to go out on a vacation or even just go out on a weekend? Canadians aren't just willingly giving these things up. They are essentially being forced to pay for your vacation house or eat this month. We have seen the cost of living go up more than ever before over the past 10 years. And at the end of the day, the insane policies the Liberals implemented before aren't really changing, with things like the EV mandate coming in. They want to continue to raise the carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax. Anyway, I'd like to know what you think down in the comments section below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and thank you very much for watching.